Hi, this is George Kattouf for AgelessTimeless.com, where we try to answer the question, what do you expect for someone my age? Our response, excellence. We try to interview individuals over the age of 50 or those that contribute to the individuals over the age of 50 to ensure that we're doing everything possible to maximize our health potential. Because remember, your body is a temple. All right, it's a real honor for me today to interview this gentleman. His resume is so deep, it's going to be hard to cover everything in one interview, but I'll do my best. He was a 4-time Super Bowl champ. He's got 4 rings to prove it. 1974, 75, 78, and 79 for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Offensive tackle, protecting Terry Bradshaw's blind side. 10 years he was a strength and conditioning coach for the Pittsburgh Steelers and defensive coach. 6 years defensive coach, Grove City College, master's degree in exercise science, Slippery Rock University, founder of Adventures in Training with a Purpose, and generally just a great guy who continues to stay youthful. And I believe his current age is 73, if I'm correct.
Let me live them all. I'm 72.
72. We don't want to add 1 year to him.
72.
He's 72 at this taping.
All of this year. Yeah, I want to live all of this one before we go to the next.
And he's Steelers 50-year team. And we could go on and on, but without further ado, I want to introduce Mr. Jon Kolb. We really appreciate you being with us today for Ageless Timeless.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, Jon, you weren't a very big guy. In 9th grade, as you put it, you were about 120 pounds, if that. And how did you go from being such a small youngster to becoming a professional football player with 4 Super Bowl rings?
Well, a lot of people can disagree with me. My dad was 5'7", so I didn't genetically. It didn't look like there was very promising either. But I did. In the 9th grade, I didn't get the uniform. I was the only kid. I would climb up the back of the stadium because I was too embarrassed to walk up the front of the stadium and sit in the stands, and all the people would see me. So I started training, and it was kind of interesting. I think this is interesting. I was reading books, everything I could about training, and there was a guy named Bill Glass who was playing with the Cleveland Browns. And one thing that caught my eye is he had prayed if God would make him an All-American, he would become a pastor. So, I'm in the 9th grade, and I'm not getting a uniform. So and all I can tell you is every year I grew 30 pounds after that. And I graduated from high school. I was 6'2", and about, add 30 pounds to 3 years. Got the football scholarship, and at Oklahoma State, things kept working well for me. I ended up making the All-American teams my senior year. And then I remembered my promise from the Bill Glass book, and in my hometown, it seemed like all the pastors married big, heavy ladies, and I thought that was the definition of a pastor. You got to marry somebody's got to marry the heavy ones, and so I was like, oh my, I don't know about this, but there's more than one way to have a ministry, and as it's turned out, our ministry is in Adventures in Training with a Purpose, and we have right now like 7 people that are paralyzed. We have numbers of people with Parkinson's and MS and chronic conditions where if we can improve their neuromuscular function, then their circumstances of their life can improve. So I guess that's how the whole thing wrapped up in my mind.
So you're serving your belief in Christ, your fellowship, all the things that you did in your career Did you bring a lot of people to Christ as far as when you played for the Steelers, when you were in college, that type of thing?
Well, I don't think that's what God wants us to do is keep score. I think it's interesting. The first time God speaks in the Bible, he says, "Let there be light." And all of a sudden, there's light. And when the first time in the Gospel of John that Jesus speaks, he's talking to one of John the Baptist's disciples, and he says, "What is it that you seek?" And I think from the first of the Bible all the way through, people are seeking light, if you will, because the world is. And there's another scripture, I think, that to me that ties us in, and it's in Acts 17:28, and it says, "In him," speaking of Christ, "we live, we move, and we have our being." And I think there's a number of places in the Bible where there's sandwiches, and that's a sandwich. Live is one piece of bread, have your being is the other piece of bread, but move is in the middle. That's the protein, that's the meat in the middle. And what I see all the time is when you take the meat out of the sandwich, you got two pieces of bread, and it's not too good. And when you take move out of people's life, they stop living and they stop existing and having their being. And so I guess to try to answer your question, what happens with us is even as a player, Jesus met people's physical needs before he started talking about spiritual things most of the time. And even as a player, people come up to you because of physical things, and that gives you the opportunity to share your faith. And so we've done football camps. Right now we're still doing with a lot of different organizations. A friend of mine played with the Colts. His son, Stefan Wisniewski, just won a Super Bowl a couple days ago, not even a week ago. So we have they organize a lot of men's retreats. And so we have the opportunity to do that, to share our faith in Christ.
So one thing I didn't mention, not only are you a full four-time Super Bowl champ as far as the rings and what you've done with that, but you also placed fourth twice in the World's Strongest Man competition. And once again, that's almost like a miracle. You went from this small young man to being one of the strongest men in the world. How's that happen? Diet, exercise, prayer? What did it?
All of those, I think, contribute. No question.
Ball showdown. How many times did these two guys duel? Matusak of the Raiders on the left, Kolb of the Steelers on the right. Oh, Jon Kolb is away sensationally. Look at Kolb bring this weight on. 2 feet to go. 15 seconds. 16. Incredible. Our winning time of a year ago was 31 seconds. That has got to discourage big John Matusak. Little over 2 feet to go for Matusak, and the other man's already done. And John says, "I'm just not even going to bother to finish with it right now." Unbelievable by Kolb. John, that was unbelievable. No one last year even came close to 18 seconds.
18 seconds, I don't know. We have one of these in the gym at home. I have a 6-year-old boy, and he likes to play with it. And I always holler at him, if he quits. So I figured he'd see this, and he'd holler at me if I quit.
So there was no chance that Jon Kolb was backing out on this one.
You can't let your own boy holler at you.
I got to tell you right now that it would take an unbelievable effort in one of the next few heats to beat you.
Well, it's about time the ball players did something like this.
Exactly. Thanks, John.
Yeah.
Still hard for me to believe, as you look at Lars Hedlund, that Jon Kolb could do this in 18.65.
The cool thing to me about it is I weighed 252, and then the second year I think I weighed 256, 258. The average weight of the 10 guys, counting my weight and Dave Johns, was Mr. Universe, he was about 245. We were the two lightest people. It's an average weight of 60 years. It was a great opportunity. Some events, I was happy. I squatted 700 pounds and got beat by 300 pounds in the squat. In the events that took some speed and some like there was a wrist curl and a bar bend and that kind of stuff, then I would win those events. And I kind of realized looking at it that you need to win 3 or 4 events, and then and that's what I was able to do. You know, I was able to win 4 events out of 10 and then place in most of the rest of them.
When did you find out that you had this type of strength? I mean, that wasn't something that was natural to you, was it?
You know what? I mentioned my father a while ago, being 5'7". He worked on the top of oil derricks, and they were 120 feet high. And so when he would go to the top of the oil derricks, he would do a flag on going up, which is pretty not real smart, you know, to be suspended 120 feet up in the air and you're just holding on. So he would do stuff like that. He would do headstands on the top of the derrick. And so when I was little, even though I wasn't the biggest guy, he had us walking on our hands and doing reps and stuff like that. So there's a lot more to be. I call it, you know, we call it strength and conditioning. Like strength is the only factor, but strength isn't the only factor. You know, there's balance and endurance and ability to accelerate, decelerate, all those kinds of I call them gifts. All those kinds of skills, come into play depending on what your sport is and what you're trying to do. So when I look back at it, in a lot of ways, my dad really paved the way. I just needed to get a little bigger, and then in the time I started lifting weights, in fact, my first set of weights was a bar that was about 2.5 inches in diameter, and the weights were these big nuts that weighed about 17 pounds that balanced the platform of the oil derrick. And there was no collar or sleeve, so when you lifted it, you had to keep it level because it would slide down and pinch your hand. So that was my first set of weights, and then there wasn't a lot to read in terms of athletic training. There was a lot to read in terms of bodybuilding. So essentially, I was doing bodybuilding exercises when I started because, you know, Americans, that's what we do. The Europeans do the Olympic lifting. And so then when I started seeing, you know, that there's speed elements and other elements, and I started doing more of the Olympic lifting, like the snatches and clean and jerks and those kinds of things.
You continue to train. Sometimes when people leave the NFL, they don't always stay in the greatest of shape. But you have done just the opposite. You keep working out, you keep training. What's your average week like with your workouts? What do you do?
My favorite thing to do is rock climbing in Western Pennsylvania. There's tons of places to go rock climbing. And that's kind of a quiet, very challenging sport. And I'm not, you know, you may think I'm crazy, but it's like the rocks are saying you can't get up here. And so that's pretty motivating. My middle son, Tanner, is a strength coach at West Virginia University. In fact, I'm going to do a clinic this afternoon with him. He's into whitewater kayaking. So last year we floated the middle. That was 6 days. We did about 110 miles. I think we went over some like 7 I in the kayak in about 3 of them, you know. And when you get kicked out of the kayak, you're just getting rolled around, hitting the rocks. And there's a lot of life lessons in that. For example, when you come to the rocks, you got to lean into the rocks. If you lean away from the rocks, your kayak's going to get flipped. And it's like the same thing in life. When you come to rocks in life, you got to lean into them. And if you lean away from the rocks, so those kind of outdoor activities are I think what inspires me. Jake Thomas was the cornerback opposite Mel Blount. And JT, he writes a lot of, every day he writes something and he'll send it out to a lot of people. And one of the things he said the other day that I thought sums it up, he said, we don't need more competition, we need more challenge. And what JT was saying is if you take the word challenge, CHALLENG, and take the ELL out, put those two together, you have the word change. And I thought that's pretty cool. For me, I mean, that was a neat thing to think about. We need to constantly present ourselves with a challenge. And for me, most of those are challenges in terms of, like the physical training, but also the neuromuscular stuff, which is involved in bicycle riding, the mountain biking, you're trying to stay on the bike. And that requires a lot of sensory integration activity.
We could spend hours talking to you because you've done so much in your life. What's your greatest accomplishment with all the things you've done?
I don't think of it now in that term. I did think this. I got to play for 13 years, and none of my friends said, I'm tired of this. I don't want to do this anymore. We all would have. If I could have for 14 years, I would have. And I would have been able to play 14. The problem is you play on Sunday and physically you can't recover for the next week. It takes more than 7 days to get over because we had, people don't realize, when Chuck Noll was the coach, we had 4 games with Ernie Holmes, Joe Green, and Dwight White, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then I had another game on Sunday that everybody watched. And so you get pretty, and so when that was over, I was 35, and I'm thinking, what am I going to do? And I thought, I don't want football to be the biggest thing that ever happened to me. I didn't want the world's strongest man stuff. I didn't want the NFL. I didn't want that to be the biggest thing. And so I went back to school. I got my master's in exercise science, kinesiology, because like we talked about before, I love the study of movement and what all contributes to that. And then as I begin to work in orthopedic offices and hospitals, I see people that can't do that. And our insurance companies, to me, it's like the combine. The combine is about numbers. If you can run a 4.40, if you can bench press 225 30 times, if you can vertical jump 30 inches, you're a second round draft choice. Those are all numbers. But it's not until you go to training camp that we find out if you're a football player. And insurance works the same way. You get 14 weeks of therapy, or you have a knee replacement, you can bend your knee 115 degrees. So those are numbers. So insurance says you're done. Well, that doesn't mean you can get off a toilet seat. It doesn't mean you can get off of a couch. It doesn't mean that you can climb stairs or go downstairs. And we use the word functional. Most of the strength clinics that you go to doing functional activities. And so when people can't do that, again, like I said a while ago, they die. And so our health system is a great place to have a heart attack or break your leg, but it's not a great place to have Parkinson's, MS, or because if you're paralyzed, they tell you, you get 20 weeks of therapy and then go home and die of bed sores, but they give it a nice word like Cubidae, so it doesn't sound as bad as. And so there's millions of people in our country that are sitting in wheelchairs. Go to Walmart, you'll see them. They ride their little carts around, and we're not making an effort to get these people moving. So, your question of what's my accomplishment? We've got a team that actually put this. I think I'm pretty good at the neuromuscular part of it, but the team that we have, they're the ones that got the and we work 5 days a week. Actually, we have a swimming program for veterans, or aquatic program for veterans on Saturday morning. And just speaking of veterans, I think there's 4 levels of veterans. We say veteran. Well, I was in the National Guard. That's one level. Then you have the people that are active. And then you have people that may have been deployed. We've got a 30-year-old veteran that was in a firefight in Afghanistan, and 3 feet from him, this is just one incident, he gets hit with a .50 caliber projectile, and brains go all over the place. And I mean, the things that happened to him, his other buddy got killed, but he couldn't get to him till the morning, and that was about 20 yards away. Those veterans, they come home and they're out of they're discharged, and they have to figure out how to live with that. And this young man, it wasn't working, and he gets arrested for drugs and alcohol. And he's helping our veterans now. He's working with them, but he can't get a job because he has a criminal record. So all of those things come together, and I think ATP is a little part of it. There's 42,000 veterans organizations in the United States that help veterans. Most of them build a wheelchair ramp. They fix a roof. They help with a car payment. But the next month, that veteran's in the same situation as he was last month. Our organization, we're trying to really help veterans improve their functional ability.
And you started an organization called Adventures in Training for a Purpose. You want to elaborate on that a little bit more, why you started it and how that all fits in with everything else you've done in your life?
Well, yeah, the words Adventures in Training with a Purpose, all 3 words, key words, have a meaning to me. Adventure, that's kind of like what I was talking about, mountain bike. Adventure means I don't know how it's going to turn out. I start out trying to climb that rock. I don't know if I'm going to make it or not, but it's an adventure trying. And that's the way life is. Training, again, we take the numbers away, and training is trying to accomplish, trying to get to the top of that rock. I'm training. We've got 6 veterans right now. We've got 1 veteran that hasn't walked for 13 years. A motor vehicle accident when he was stationed in Alaska. He's taking steps using the parallel bars after 13 years. His insurance expired years ago, but we've got, and then I can tell you about other people that are paralyzed, that are walking with walkers and stuff. It takes years of training to do that. So Adventures in Training with a Purpose. The purpose is to improve function, to be able to get out of the wheelchair and have a functional, abundant life again. I think of the word freedom. What's freedom mean? Well, if I'm in a wheelchair, I have no freedom. But if I can get up and move, that provides freedom for people. And America used to be a place where we valued freedom and helping people have that freedom to see what their hopes and aspirations are. So it's really cool that doing the big buzzword is sensory integrated type movements. And so what would that be? That's things like walking on stilts, pogo sticks, tight ropes or slack lines, just various balance exercises using those stability balls. So those are a lot of the apparatus that we use. And there's just a lot of research, if we had time we could go into, that supports how that improves cognition, emotion, strength. If you have arthritis in your back, you support a lot of weight. You can't support a lot of speed movement, but we can reduce the stability. For example, using a stability ball, and people can do that movement where they have to stabilize more, and they're able to train that way.
And you're located in Pennsylvania?
We're in Western Pennsylvania. Excuse me, Western Pennsylvania. Our budget mostly is for the staff that we pay, legal and insurance, and then as far as we don't own a building right now. Monday, Wednesday, Friday morning and afternoon, we're working. There's an Assembly of God Church in Hermitage, Pennsylvania, that gives us a really nice gym. That's where I'm at right now to use. In the early mornings, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, there's a boxing gym in Pittsburgh, Mac Gym. It looks like they filmed the movie Rocky there. I love it because when you walk in therapy, the first thing they're going to say is, on a scale of 1 to 10, what's your pain level? We're not going to ask you what your pain level is. Can you imagine, we're getting ready to play the Super Bowl and some player goes, "Hey, coach, my pain level's a 4 today. I don't think I can go." Pain isn't, most of the time, isn't a factor. We got to go. And so this boxing gym really provides a neat, I think, a neat atmosphere for our people, because they're paralyzed and they're learning to walk, and right next to them is a boxing ring, and people are in there and working on their boxing combinations. And then in Youngstown, we have there's a really neat YMCA downtown, and we have, I think, about 40 veterans altogether that train in that YMCA in Youngstown. So we have those 3 locations, and our staff moves around. Then we have an after-school program. We have 210 at-risk kids in an after-school program. The best way to me to describe the at-risk is these kids, they come to school and they're fed breakfast. The school feeds them lunch. They do our program, and then they're fed dinner before they go home. And then on Fridays, they give them a backpack so they have food to eat for the weekend. This is the United States of America. And so we have 210 kids that are involved in this program. And that's where we do a lot of the slack lines and the pogo sticks and the tumbling, forward rolls and backward rolls and that kind of stuff with these kids. And we have a mentoring program as well that we work with these kids, where we meet with them after school and just have adults mentor them, because most of them don't have that when they get home.
We hear a lot about cutting physical education programs, oftentimes on a college level or going down even to elementary, junior high. I was talking to some of my students the other day, and I said, do you do push-ups in school? And they said, no. And that shocked me. I think you and I came from a time where push-ups were quite the rage as far as climbing ropes and doing everything else that you could do. What are your thoughts on that with the decline?
Oh boy, you keep ripping open the scabs. It's interesting. Several years ago, before I really even got into, before I started my master's program work, we would do football camps, and I would sometimes would never get to the football skills because we couldn't get the warm-ups done. Here's what it turns out: the same kids that can't skip can't spell cat. The same kids can't read and do simple math problems. And there's a really cool article, a couple books. Who Switched Off? one is Spark. The author of the Spark book is John Kolb. He's a psychiatrist at Harvard, teaches psychiatry. They talk about how sensory integration, doing things like skipping, connects the right and left side of the brain, because one side is visual spatial. The other side of your brain is going to do the math and calculations. But if those two sides don't come together, then you see C, an A, and a T, but you can't put the picture of the cat with it. And so that's what this lady in her article talks about. We don't need more flashcards. We need more skipping. We need more activity. And so what are the people that make those decisions? They cut out PT, just like you said.
You look like you could still play for the Steelers. Do you practice any special kind of diet, anything like that?
I've always, the thing I'm blessed, the things I like are essentially the things that are good for you. So at the Super Bowl the other day, somebody said, they had a cake and stuff. Here, you want a cake? No, I don't like cake. But I'm not trying to say it's a perfect diet. I can sit down and eat ice cream and keep on eating when everybody else is done, particularly homemade ice cream. So, but for the most part, my carbohydrates are complex carbohydrates. I'm not a simple sugar. I don't go with this, the sweets. I'm not a sweet person, but I love fruits and vegetables, and so I eat a lot of that. Probably the thing that I do that most people would frown on is, you know what? I don't care what they say on the TV commercial, the text that you have to have protein to build muscle, and you have to have the branched chain amino acids, and you know that as well as I do. And so if you're not balancing your diet, if you're going to be a vegan, you better read some books so that you know how to balance so that you get the complete amino acids. But I eat lots of lean food. Last night my wife made chicken breasts. So we eat a lot of chicken, fish, and I eat a lot of red meat. But I'll eat the leaner, I'm not going to eat the fat hamburger.
Do you have anything personally that's impacted upon you health-wise, or usually when you leave the NFL, you've got some injuries that plague you?
Well, I'm blessed. I had my first surgery in my life 4 years ago. Never had a surgery. Well, when I was a kid, if you sneezed, they took your tonsils out. I don't know anybody in their 70s that has their tonsils. And so, that was a nightmare. I can still remember them giving me that ether thing. But we were in Nebraska. My son wrestled in Nebraska. We went out there to watch that. And I'm running downstairs. There was a straight 3 floors of stairs in a row. I'm carrying these boxes. Couldn't see the boxes, and I missed the last 14 stairs. And I ruptured my quad tendons. Wow. So I was in a wheelchair for a week. It's not easy to run a wheelchair. People thought I was trying to run into them on purpose, because you got to go like this, but it still goes off to, and that 1 week in that wheelchair was, mentally I couldn't handle it, not being able to have the freedom to get up and do things. I was afraid to fall. One of the most terrible days, I was trying to get in the shower. I couldn't get my foot lifted up 6 inches in the shower. My wife had to come bend over and put my foot in the shower. And that just really reinforced how important movement is, and why we do what we do. So I did that. Like I mentioned, I can't lay down on a bench. My shoulders are kind of beat up, so I can't do a lot of that. I'm blessed, even though I had those quads ruptured, I have no arthritis in my knees. And so I can run and climb and do all that stuff. I don't know if you can see my nose looks and my neck looks the same just from collisions. So, because we were taught to hit with our head. That's what if you moved your head, you had to go through and do the drill again. So you hit with your head. So I have some arthritis in my neck, and my fingers aren't too straight. We never held. I don't know how that happened, but so the neck and the hands are kind of beat up, but I'm healthy. As praise the Lord. And so as long as I can do things, I'm going to do them.
Well, I could talk to you for a day or a week or a month because you're very inspiring with all the things that you've accomplished, and you've still maintained a sense of balance in your life. But if you had to advise people who are your age, younger, older, about movement, what would you tell them? Because a lot of people throw in the towel. They kind of follow the path that this is what I'm supposed to be when I'm 50, 60, 70, beyond, even younger. And so they follow that transition and go with the flow and end up oftentimes ill. What are your thoughts?
One of the things I try to do, there is so much misinformation. So I try not to give people my opinion, and what I've tried to do today is not give you that's my opinion, but I mentioned the textbooks that I get the information out of. A great book to answer your question is a book by Juanine Spiriduso, and it's called The Physical Dimension of Aging. And one of the things she says is if your child falls off the bike, you tell them to get back on the bike. If you or I fall off the bike, what do they tell you? Act your age. And so one of the research things that she did, she says in her preface, she says there's no such thing as a typical senior. And to support that accusation, modern Olympic Games started in 1896. And so if you look at the gold medal winners of 1896 and the gold medal winners for the 100 meters, for the shot put, for the high jump, and you compare the best athletes in the world in 1896, 1904, 1896, 1900, 1904, 1912. You have to go to 1960 before the world's best athletes could win a gold medal in the senior games today. So now that's the fact. I mean, she did the research. So seniors I'm talking about people 65 and older. Those are people, we've got in our senior games here, we've got an 88-year-old physician that you should see him run. I would not challenge him in 100 meters, And he's a track coach, and he's running. So she's right. There's no such thing as a typical senior. It's what people tell us that they think we should be doing, and it's probably the same thing as anything else. Well, I don't want to put the effort into it. Today we have a society, even in schools. You go to a high school banquet. What do? We give participation trophies. We bring people up and we give them a trophy for participating. And so we have the mindset that there's no that winning isn't important. Well, then you've got to take the Bible and rip out 1 Corinthians 9, chapter 24, because it says everybody runs in a race, but only one person wins, and we should run to win. I see that all the time and what things we can do. And the textbooks support it. So, you know, I don't know how much time you have. My wife doesn't like redneck jokes. I think redneck jokes are funny. And so the pilot comes on, this redneck pilot comes on the loudspeaker. And he says, I've got good news and bad news. And the good news is, first, the bad news is we do not have enough fuel to get to the airport. Good news is we do have enough fuel to get to the crash site. And so my wife says, that's not funny. You know what? How do you want to live your life? You want to live your life coming in nice and slow into the nursing home and put a blanket on you, and then they wheel you out in the hallway, and you sit there, and you don't even recognize your relatives when you come in, but you come in for a nice landing. Or do you want to crash into you want to come into the crash site? You know what? I think I want to go I want to come into that crash site. My dad was 99 and 8 months, 99 years, 8 months. He was mowing the lawn Saturday night, and sometime Sunday morning he had a stroke. That's the crash site right there. Mow the lawn, do it that way.
I have a feeling you're the youngest man, youngest looking man at your class reunion, and probably the strongest by far. If anybody wants to be inspired, they should watch you do the windshield wiper that you do on YouTube, where you hang and you use your abdominal strength and your arm strength to just move your legs from one side to the other, and you do it almost effortlessly. I don't know if you can still do that, but I imagine you climb mountains, so you probably...
No, that's part of my workout. We still, yeah. That's
still do that.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I'd love to see you someday in our area here. Maybe you can teach me how to do that. But it's been a real honor talking to you. And I hope everybody that's watching this gets inspired to move and to try to find the best challenge, as you said, within their own lives that'll keep them moving and not be stagnant. Yeah. Don't necessarily follow the crowd, because you might end up getting what you wish, which is a sedentary lifestyle.
Yeah, you're right, George, and it's different. Challenge means I'm not taking a participation trophy. I'm going for all I can, but I'm competing with myself. I don't have to compete in the NFL. And so you're right, that challenge is what brings about change.
Right. And I know you still run bleachers at Youngstown State, so keep doing that as well.
Youngstown State is the best bleacher stadium in the nation, because all the 172 steps, you don't have to start, 172 steps straight up. Most stadiums, you can only go a little bit, and then you got to go around and go through the next deck. It's all one deck, 172 steps. Come do it. Yeah.
And you can still do that.
Oh, you betcha. Yeah.
Push-ups, part of your game? You do push-ups?
Well, you know what? One of the things I like to do is when I'm doing a clinic, I got one this afternoon in West Virginia, find somebody that can bench 400 pounds. Okay, can you do a push-up? Oh, yeah. So then you put their feet on a big stability ball and their hands on a med ball. But they've got to stabilize. And so then I turn my back and start doing my clinic. And I know the guy can't do it because everybody I'm looking at is laughing. So my point is, what good is that 400-pound bench press if you can't stabilize it? So, yeah. But it really works well for me because I can train that way with my med balls and my stability ball. And then if I need to go do a bench press, I can do it because it keeps the strength. But if I continue to do the heavy weight, my shoulders, they're sore all the time. But I can train the push-ups with the stability balls because. So how do we get strong? We didn't even really talk about that. That's fine. Maybe we'll do it another time. It's muscle fiber recruitment. The more motor units I can recruit, the stronger I am. I can do that with resistance, or I can do that by reducing stability or increasing speed. So as we get older, I don't do as much resistance, but I use those other techniques.
Right. And I think the ultimate goal is that you can function in your later years of life and do all the things that you want to do, that nothing impedes you. Can you walk up steps? Can you carry groceries? Can you do those basic things and far more, but at least do those things, right?
Well, so many of my friends, they're buying houses and that have one floor. And so that's surrendering the Alamo. Why do you want to buy a house that has one floor? Because we need to go up and down steps. And so I really don't understand that. But there's a lot of things I don't understand. Obviously, I had to have my friends help me with the computer here this morning, our staff, because I don't have a curiosity in a computer. But I know this, we are born with a soft drive and a hard drive that's empty. And I was taught that in school that once we're 3 years old, we do not get any more neurons. That neurogenesis and neuroplasticity, according to one professor at Penn State University, is the hottest topic in neuroscience today. So what is neurogenesis? That's the ability to produce new neurons. What's neuroplasticity? That's when the bridge is out, the ability to find a new pathway around through that. And they're now discovering how that works, and it's really cool stuff. And it's involved, and it's predicated. The predicate there is movement again. So we can't, no matter where we go, we can't turn our back on movement.
And you have to find a movement that is challenging, one that you haven't done. If you walk a straight line, that's not necessarily challenging unless you have an issue with walking. But you have to find different ways. That's why in dance, in martial arts, when you're doing those kind of elaborate movements that require you to get out of your comfort zone, you're going to build those neurons and enhance that BDNF that's so important.
Yeah, and we could go on with, there's some really cool research that's been published recently, just what you're talking about with Parkinson's and dance, riding bicycles, and boxing combinations. And I'm not talking about TV commercial. I'm talking about neurological journals. That's what we're finding is making a difference. And we're discovering all these neurotransmitters. You just named one, BDNF, there's gamma-aminobutyric acid, all kinds of neurotransmitters that produce almost, in some cases more, the same amount of serotonin and dopamine that somebody produces when they're taking the Xanax and the Prozac drugs. So, we got a choice, take a drug or get up and move.
Well, thank you so much for all the time you've given to me this morning. I could, excuse me, talk to you for much longer, but I don't want to take up too much of your time. You've been very gracious with it. And maybe sometime we'll get you in our area and we can do this directly in the studio.
Yeah, I think you guys are, you said by Allentown? Am I close? Altoona?
Altoona.
Altoona, okay. Yeah, we used to go up there when my kids were little for the Little League wrestling matches. So, yeah, love to come see you. Okay.
We'd appreciate that. Okay, you take care, sir. God bless you.
God bless. Thank you.